Welcome, folks. I'm Jabby Koway, joined by Charkirk.
Hello.
We are...
What?
I thought your hello was going to go on longer for some odd reason. Okay, so we're looking at a new Rockstars breakdown of Quantumania. So very excited to jump into this and unpack some of the details. Even though we did not necessarily love Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania,
it was fun.
I still enjoyed myself. There were a lot of moments I enjoyed. And of course, it's always fun to unpack everything that is not just about this story, but how it ties into the greater Marvel Cinematic Universe, which I'm sure Erik Voss is going to get into. So,
yeah.
You guys, hit that subscribe button, please. Bell icon, all notifications, pretty please. Vote this sucker up. Let YouTube know you're enjoying what you're watching. And here we go.
Boop-de-boop.
Welcome back to New Rockstars. I'm Erik Voss, and this is a breakdown of all the Easter eggs and details you missed in Marvel's Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania. From the heights of Jonathan Majors as Kang the Conqueror to the depths of the uncanny valley of MODOK's face, this movie makes one small baby leg step and one giant quantum leap for MCU kind. Let's break down Quantumania scene by scene. And while in this video I will be covering all the cool Easter eggs, there remains a deeper mystery to this film. Why it is even called Quantumania, a word they never say out loud in the movie. And I will be covering that over on our new channel, The Deep Dive, which launches today, February 17th. Right now, you can watch premium launch day videos, deep dive analyses of Loki, WandaVision, a Quantumania live stream, and a documentary on movie trailer deception. And next week, February 24th, will be my separate deep dive into what Quantumania means.
I just assumed that they were going for kind of goofy titles, like Multiverse of Madness. Quantumania, it's like you're in the quantum realm.
And it's mania.
And it's totally manic.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, duh.
He's going to have a 20-minute video breaking down why it's called. We just did it.
We
there
did
you go.
it.
Deep dive right here on the Cinepals channel.
Does it need to be that deep? Really?
Yes, that's what I say yes to her all the time. That's what I said.
Shut up.
She says, does it need to be?
You
are the one who
I'm allowed.
Okay, let's begin. Quantumania's Marvel Studios fanfare includes, for the first time, an MCU villain. He Who Remains from the Loki finale, added to the top of the A of Marvel.
Yeah.
As this movie places
I
his
was watching
throne
really
room
hard.
atop an A-shaped tower, and he has a history of dominating other countless Avengers. And in the post-credit scene, there is a glimpse of his corporate variant, Mr. Gryphon, who I believe currently sits atop Avengers Tower, renamed Kang Tower. Then again, He Who Remains was relatively an MCU hero compared to his variant, Kang the Conqueror, in this film. This prologue scene shows his arrival in the quantum realm when he was banished by the Kang dynasty for starting the same multiversal war that He Who Remains alluded to.
Not every version of me was so pure of heart. New worlds meant only one thing, new lands to be conquered. The peace between realities erupted, each variant fighting to preserve their universe and annihilate the others.
You can see three pieces breaking off of Kang's ship as it arrives in this atmosphere, perhaps representing the three Kangs who led his betrayal and sabotaged his ship. There may actually be a connection between the three timekeepers and the mysterious fourth broken timekeeper statue, a statue that represents perhaps this exiled Kang. Now remember, Janet Van Dyne had been stuck in the quantum realm since she shrunk between atoms to disable a rogue ICBM in 1987. Now to clear up this frequently asked question, Janet aged normally over the 30 years in the quantum realm, while Scott time dilated, aging only 5 hours over 5 years of our time, because Scott fell into a time vortex while Janet did not. Janet just stayed in the normal quantum realm that entire time.
Okay, that's convenient.
I think Michelle Pfeiffer definitely aged slower. She looked good.
She looks fantastic. I love Michelle Pfeiffer. I've been a Michelle Pfeiffer fan since she was Catwoman.
I am more attracted to Michelle Pfeiffer now than when she was Catwoman.
Well, that's not surprising considering the age of women that you're often attracted to, Jabby, and that's a good thing.
The hell are you trying to say?
Remember, Janet's line in the 2018 film's post-credit scene indicated that time vortexes were separate things within that broader quantum realm.
And don't get sucked into a time vortex. We won't be able to save you.
Now, it isn't specified, but the camera does linger on one of those big vortexes in the sky, and that might actually be one of the time vortexes that Scott slipped through, and one of the ones that the Avengers later navigated to go back in time in Avengers Endgame. But this opening gives us a scenario in which the roots of Phase 5 and the multiverse saga begin with two old school characters. Janet Van Dyne Wasp was one of the original Avengers in the 60s comics, and Kang was one of the OG Avengers villains, the time-traveling villain from the 1960s comics, who was later retconned to be the same entity as several other time-centric villains: Immortus, Pharaoh Rama-Tut, Scarlet Centurion, Victor Timely, even the hero Iron Lad. We're gonna meet all of them pretty soon. Kang and Janet save each other, and we don't see Kang again for, another 46 minutes, despite everyone in the movie talking about him in every scene. That's okay, again, we're gonna spend a lot of time with this guy going forward. Scott Lang's opening montage is set to John Sebastian's theme song for the sitcom Welcome Back, Kotter. Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back.
How'd you feel about Kang being alluded to much in the same way as Voldemort? He who should not be named. Like for 45 minutes. Him, look at him. He.
I guess it just kind of got me thinking about him, because the first time we see him, I actually was like, oh, he seems to be pretty cool. And that kind of makes me more scared of him because, you know, he seemed like a nice guy. You know, he was hanging out with Janet.
And then he met Janet.
Uh-huh.
Then every dream of him being a good guy got dashed.
Oh my God. What's wrong with you?
She had some needs, and then she's like, I'm out.
That was never alluded to. She did that with Bill Murray's character.
That's right.
Yeah.
You don't know. They'd been stuck together for a long time.
Maybe. That's fine. Do what you need to, Janet. He seemed like a nice guy, and so that's even scarier. Someone who's so diabolical that he can just give off the facade of being really nice. But I guess he was really nice until Janet was like, no, I'm not going to do the thing that you want me to do. And then he was like, okay, now I'm really bad.
Kind of callback to the 2018 Ant-Man and the Wasp, having an opening montage set to Come On, Get Happy, a theme song for another sitcom, The Partridge Family. Scott's opening narration references time traveling with Captain America and Endgame, and how that didn't make sense. Though in Loki, we learned that was something the Kang variant He Remains wanted them to do.
What they did was supposed to happen. You escaping was not.
FBI agent Jimmy Woo, Randall Park, makes a cameo. He and Scott finally getting that lunch date.
I thought you were inviting me somewhere.
Like a party or like dinner or something?
I don't know. I thought you were planned the evening.
No, I meant to like arrest you. I'll arrest you later again.
Take it easy, Jimmy.
Okay. Did you want to grab dinner or something? I mean, because I'm free. Yeah,
I love him.
I love how Scott does some sleight of hand to conjure the credit card, something that Jimmy Woo was fascinated in Scott doing in Ant-Man and the Wasp. And we saw in WandaVision how Jimmy picked up Scott's close-up magic hobby. Scott gets toasted by YouTuber Ryan Bergar and his wife Mariel Scott. I've actually guested with Ryan on his channel Watcher. I love that channel. I love the whole team over there. And this makes me so close to being MCU canon. Kevin just called me. You know it would make my life. Scott's old Baskin-Robbins boss Dale returns to the 2015 film. Now he awards Scott Employee of the Century using his old company photo, and he kept Scott's pink apron and his name tag Jack, which in the 2015 film Paul Rudd picked out to shout out his son Jack. And this goofy award is also kind of a running gag, with Cassie giving Scott a World's Greatest Grandma trophy in the previous film. Now, Quantumania is the 31st movie in the MCU, which is a nice bit of coincidence with the 31 flavors of our beloved Baskin-Robbins. Scott visits Bridge Donuts, with all the donuts overpriced at $3.50 per, very typical of San Francisco, and all the different donuts are themed around San Francisco things.
I'm sorry.
Those prices are actually quite reasonable compared to where Char likes to go get donuts.
I know. I like my donuts super fancy, and they're like...
Char's donuts are like $20 a pop.
No, they're $5, okay?
That's
so
still
reasonable.
criminal. That is criminal. $5.
I'm bougie AF,
for some yeast with sugar on it. Jeez.
Okay, I had to stop myself from making a yeast joke. Carry on.
What's the yeast joke?
It's terrible, actually. Let's not talk about it.
What kind of donuts are you thinking of?
I wasn't thinking about donuts, that's what.
Ah.
I wasn't thinking about that.
Well, what did the lesbian vampire say to them?
What?
Never mind.
Stop.
Arrow, Summer of Love, The Hate, Presidio, Pier 39, Golden Gate, and The Candlestick. A detail that I screwed up in one of my trailer breakdowns. Like, I'm sorry, I now know the Giants don't currently play there. I've only lived in the city for a year. Please don't kick me out of it. I like the parks. Now, the cafe owner is played by actor Ruben Rabasa, who actually played a balloon vendor, Mr. Cardazzo, in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 2, Episode 12, and a hilarious character in I Think You Should Leave.
Any other ideas?
Stinky!
What?
Here he says,
Thank you, Spider-Man!
which is a completely fair mix-up, considering after that memory wipe from Doctor Strange, no one remembers that Spider-Man is Peter Parker. Hope Van Dyne now runs the Pym Van Dyne Foundation to use Pym particles for humanitarian efforts, reversing deforestation, expanding public housing, food production. Meanwhile, Scott parades on his book tour, which was actually teased in Black Panther Wakanda Forever and in Ms. Marvel when we saw Scott was doing a lot of press tours, like his appearance on the This Powered Life podcast. Scott has to pick up Cassie from jail. Cassie now played by Kathryn Newton. Jail is where Scott began his journey in the 2015 film, but Cassie is really taken off of both Ant-Mans, including Hank Pym. He kept a shrunken Soviet tank on his keychain, and now we see she shrunk a cop car. On the drive home, Cassie says she protested the city clearing a homeless encampment of people who had lost their homes in the blip, referring to the people who dusted back to find their homes occupied, creating a giant housing crisis. Cassie also says,
"A guy dressed like a bee tried to kill me in my room when I was 6. I've never had a normal life."
Yes, of course, setting up the return of Darren Cross in this movie as MODOK. Scott plays a clip from his audiobook.
And in that moment, all I could think was, how did the Hulk turn me into a baby? Will I be a baby forever? Am I the Hulk's baby? A little after that, a raccoon from space showed up. I don't think he knew my name. I was just happy to meet a raccoon who could talk.
Yes, obviously more nods to Endgame, of course meeting Rocket, and that interesting moment where their failed time travel experiments resulted in Scott being stuck in the body of a baby. Which reminds us of how the Avengers accidentally invented a kind of immortality, or at least slow aging, which does become important in this movie when their super intelligent ants age 1,000 years in a single day. Over dinner, Cassie reminds Scott that he got in trouble for getting back at Vista Corp. That was the company that Scott used to work for, the company that was screwing over its customers. Scott tried to get back at them and then ended up in prison over it. She also brings up how Scott went to Germany to fight Captain America in Civil War. Scott corrects her, saying that he fought with Cap alongside Cap since he was on Team Cap. Hank uses old school.
Does anyone else think about Back to the Future 2 when they see this? There's a scene where Marty's mom, oh God, I don't know whose mom. It was a mom. She puts a little tiny pizza thing from Pizza Hut onto the, she pops it in the stove. Within seconds, it's a huge, fresh, delicious looking pizza.
Pizza from Pizza Hut.
Yes.
Pym particles to enlarge a pizza, and in his ear, we see that he has a hearing aid, setting up his frequency entangling with these ants throughout the movie. Peyton Reed confirmed that this pizza enlargement is a nod to the Pizza Hut scene in Back to the Future Part 2. And when we enter their basement lab, right away are a ton of visual clues pointing to Cassie and Hank having geeked out over both ants and technology. Cassie's quantum satellite device has a silver and bronze color like a vintage stereo, reflecting Hank's design influence, and Scott sees their huge ant farm right away and how all the ants inside have helmets and have already built a pretty complex society there. The display screen on the other side of the room has a 3D image of an ant on it, and all over the table are textbooks about ants. Janet is super worried.
You know how dangerous the quantum realm is. We all do, Mom. Nobody's going to the quantum realm.
So Janet went from being pretty okay with Scott going into the quantum realm to collect quantum healing particles at the end of the 2018 film to now being completely terrified that Cassie is even communicating with the quantum realm. So what changed? Well, maybe Janet was fine with risking Scott going down there for just a few seconds to a specific region of the quantum realm that Janet could locate, a place that in her years on the run from Kang, she hid in the surrealist rural parts away from the civilization. But it's also possible that the Avengers, having gotten away with time travel via the quantum realm since then, has reminded Janet that quantum realm-based timeline manipulation is a real thing, and that Kang is still a real threat down there, and they shouldn't risk re-entry again.
Or that
they shouldn't tempt fate, because as Tony Stark said in Endgame,
you mess with time, it tends to mess back.
So the device...
Or they were just trying to be convenient with the storytelling, and so they were like, yes, we've just conveniently forgotten that she was chill with all of that, so now in this movie, she's not. And that's okay, because honestly, I didn't remember.
Whenever he breaks down like all the rules of warping and time travel, I go.
Rules are made to be broken.
I just have like a little bit of a fart mentally. I'm like, and I'm not. I don't care about that.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't actually make any real world sense, and it doesn't need to. It's fantasy.
Movie. Yeah.
It's not real life.
Yeah.
Okay, Bohemian Rhapsody.
It activates on its own, but we later learn that it was MODOK hijacking it, and the whole family gets sucked in. Scott bumps into the ant farm right away, proving that these ants got sucked in too, and that they're gonna come back later. The family gets separated, and Scott slaps on the chest piece of his suit. Now, compared to the last time we saw him in Endgame, his suit in the opening sequence of this movie has a different chest piece. And that's because this is a form of portable nanotech that contains the entire suit inside, showing how Scott has upgraded to something closer to Stark tech. And after Giant Scott catches his daughter, I love how she proves she already already knows how to work this in her own suit by pressing the button on Scott's glove to shrink them back down. What Cassie thinks is the son behind Scott has stuttered movement, and they realize it's actually a predator. Scott enlarges to take it out, and then pisses off a paramecium-looking creature, and they're saved by the freedom fighters. Meanwhile, Janet explains to Hank how there's a whole civilization and ecosystem down here, saying you weren't able to look deep enough, not through the void in Subatomica. There are worlds, worlds and worlds. It's a place beyond time and space, and she says,
it's a secret universe beneath ours.
She's referring to that moment when Hank and Janet left the quantum realm in the 2018 film, and Peyton Reed hid a city in the background. That area with the chaotic visuals must be what Janet was referring to by the void, even though in Loki, the void is a completely different place where he remains banishes things that he prunes. And then she drops the word Subatomica. Now in the Marvel Comics, Subatomica is the name of the solar system that's contained within the microverse that contains all the various different planets that you can visit down there. You can actually read a lot more about Subatomica and its various appearances in the Marvel Comics over on the Fandom Marvel database. They always do a really good job curating that info. Scott and Cassie are taken to the Freedom Fighter camp where they have to drink the ooze from Veb, voiced by David Dastmalchian, who played Clarke in the
Oh, okay. So a lot of people were guessing, like, who is that? Who voiced him? Because his voice was so familiar. There were some people who thought it was Paul Rudd.
Like, no, he was in the, if you looked in the credits, if you stayed for the credits and actually read the names, then yeah, you would have known that. Yeah.
He was actually probably my favorite character in the movie.
I loved him.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, so cute. And his obsession with holes.
Yeah.
I have holes.
Which is kind of funny given his character tosses the holes around.
The dots.
Circle, it's a hole-ish.
A dot is a hole.
It's a reverse hole.
Sure.
That scene was one of my favorite scenes as well. When everyone's like, oh, they're saying the thing, and then then the translation happens because he's able to understand.
Yeah.
Drink the ooze.
Drink the ooze.
Everybody's voice is completely changed to being a lot more like nice.
Yeah.
So interesting.
Previous films, William Jackson Harper plays the telepath Quaz. Great casting as Chidi from The Good Place, the guy in an afterlife burdened with knowing too much. Katie O'Brien plays their leader, Gentora. Janet takes them to a dune region where she gets a manta ray-like mount that she telepathically communicates with. In the 2018 film, there was a deleted scene in which Janet communicates with a quantum realm creature.
Passing through, we stake no claim.
Go in peace.
And when they soar across the quantum realm on this thing's back, they briefly spot a quantum knot outpost, which has a Kang mural on it. Janet leads Hank and Hope to the city of Axia.
A subatomic universe. This changes everything we know about life, evolution, our place in the galaxy. Holy that guy looks like broccoli.
Yeah, Broccoli Man is voiced by Graham Fox, who is the on-set reader for Crow in Eternals, and they meet up with Janet's old flame Krylar, now Lord Krylar, played by Bill Murray. Now in the comics, Krylar is a sort of one-and-done character from the planet Kai in the Microverse, who shows up just in one comic issue, Incredible Hulk 156. Similarly, this Krylar doesn't last too long in this movie before Hank Pym enlarges a squid creature delicacy that, for whatever reason, doesn't eat Krylar. Really let him off easy there. Krylar reveals that...
I thought that maybe he tossed Krylar so that Krylar could come back, but potentially. Because if he gets eaten, he's definitively
gone.
Dead.
Yeah.
Kang had sent MODOK, mechanized organism designed only for killing, to hunt Scott and Cassie in the Freedom Fighter camp. Now in the comics, MODOK is an AIM technician, George Tarleton, who gets mutated by the Cosmic Cube, but Marvel Studios here has retconned MODOK to be Darren Cross, Corey Stoll's villain Yellow Jacket from the 2015 film. His body parts disproportionately shrunk after he was zipped down to the quantum realm. And as we see, the uncanniest valley in this whole uncanny valley of a film. A montage flashes back to Darren in the 2015 film, his defeat, and now picks back up with his disfigured form in the quantum realm and how Kang restored his body in its creepy little butt. Becomes a source of mockery for the rest of the film.
His visual effects was one of the things I was holding back on talking about in the non-spoiler review. Because it was like when they first revealed his actual face, I just thought it looked a little bit weird.
It did look weird, but you know what? I didn't care because I loved his character. And after a while, I was like, this just kind of lends to the weird creepiness of the character overall.
I don't mind an inherently weird character by design. It's that the visual effects just didn't seem like it was as refined as it could have been.
Yeah, I get that.
By the way, a great resource to learn about MODOK is, again, that Marvel database from our friends at Fandom, which also curates every single one of MODOK's known comic appearances, so you can go read all of them. I do love how he has a heart rate monitor on his chest that later flatlines when he dies, and he has a crystal on his forehead that he used to fire a beam at Scott and detain them for Kang. He remains to use Eliath as his lapdog. Kang uses MODOK. Janet finally tells Hope and Hank her history with Kang. She says that Kang's ship could travel the multiverse, and Hank asks, the multiverse as in alternate dimensions, parallel parallel realities? And Janet says, I didn't believe it at first, but it's real, just as we theorized. So Hank and Janet, having theorized about the multiverse back in the 80s, makes them predecessors to another couple, Wanda and Vision, having some multiverse pillow talk in the past.
What do you know about the multiverse?
Viz had his theories. He believed it was real and dangerous.
Janet recounts how, after they saved each other, she and Kang agreed to help each other rebuild and reactivate the multiverse engine core of this ship. And we don't know how many of the other Kangs have this kind of technology, but we have to assume that none of them do, or they all do now that he remains is out of the picture, but they have a kind of truce where they're able to check each other's infinite power over the time stream. A kind of mutually assured destruction, making this Kang, Kang the Conqueror, the rogue state of them all. The Kim Jong Kang, the one who didn't play by the rules. Now Janet says his ship was neurokinetic, connected to his thoughts. So when she touched it, she saw his mind and felt what he had done. She says entire worlds, entire timelines gone, like they never existed. This sequence uses the same sacred timeline imagery from Loki, but it shows the actions of this Kang the Conqueror tearing it apart. While we see Kang within a single timeline blasting innocents who flee from him, he's causing so many branched timelines on individual scales that the timeline as a whole cannot take it. So it's not just murder, it's load-bearing murders that destroy the fabric of that timeline. And I love how we see Kang's and the lines on his face illuminating as he slaughters these people. Lines precisely where the scars are on his cheeks now. And I'll go into what those scars are in next week's deep dive into this film on the other channel. So just another reminder to subscribe. Janet, waking up from this nightmare, pauses in fear, and Kang is able to see in her eyes that she knows who he is. She asks, who is Kang? The first time we hear the word Kang in the MCU. And Kang, hearing this question, knows that he has hurt so many people in his life, he just knows what it looks like when the person staring back at him knows what kind of monster he is. And I love that he frames his master plan in just a single word: win. What is Kang's plan? To win. Janet has to disable his core by enlarging it beyond use with PIM discs. So she had these on her the entire time she was in the quantum realm. These are probably rainy day PIM discs that she was hoping she'd be able to use to escape the quantum realm. But this task is more important. Kang must be trapped, even if it means entombing herself with him. And again, this justifies why in the 2018 film, Hank found Janet far away from the city in the distance. She had to exile herself in the far borders of the quantum realm to stay hidden from Kang. And that explains why in the 2015 Ant-Man, Scott saw her shadow projected on the other side of the border of the quantum realm. She was on the far border of it to get as far away from Kang as possible. Meanwhile, Kang in prison introduces himself to Scott and retracts his mask, giving us a close-up look at that neurokinetic overlay and how it clings to his skin perfectly. And as it retracts, you can notice briefly diagonal reinforcement lines across his cheeks becoming visible and the lights on the side of his helmet dim. Kang says he has killed Avengers before, but the second time in this movie, Scott is confused with the wrong Avenger.
You're not the one with the hammer.
It's Thor. We get confused a lot. Similar body types.
Yeah, Kang has specifically killed Thor, which I speculated in a new Rockstars video might have been done right before Thor sparked Vision to life, since Vision and his multiverse mind would pose potentially a pretty major threat to Kang in another timeline. Kang explains that he knows how all of time ends, saying, me. A lot of me.
That's a lot of information right there that I had forgotten about, or like, I'm just like, oh my God. That happened. What he's saying, it makes sense.
Yeah.
You know, if Vision is going to be a problem for him, then he should kill Thor before Thor brings Vision back to life.
Kang explains that he knows how all of time ends, saying, me, a lot of me. They exiled me down here. They're afraid of me. Which might sound pretty familiar to what his variant, He Who Remains, says in Loki.
If you think I'm evil, well, just wait till you meet my variants.
It just sounds like all the Kangs are really just afraid of each other. While He Who Remains was extremely animated, jumping in and out of his jet's chair, Major's performance as Kang the Conqueror is far more rigid, regal, what the actor described as no moves wasted. He tortures Scott and Cassie with just a flick of a finger, a gesture that he repeats consistently to swat them down and make commands throughout this movie. But throughout the film, you can see his rage simmering beneath the surface, rising and rising until it all just explodes in the final battle. Scott agrees to help Kang shrink the core so that Kang won't hurt Cassie, and Kang opens a portal to the site. And from here, Scott dives into the probability storm and begins splitting into variants, which MODOK describes as Schrodinger's box and Scott is a cat, referring to Erwin Schrodinger's thought experiment to describe the theoretical existence of a multiverse within an unobserved system. Schrodinger's cat was first referenced in the MCU back on Erik Selvig's chalkboard in Thor the Dark World. This concept was also described by Bill Foster in the 2018 film.
The object in question would be both in and out of phase with multiple parallel realities.
This core is essentially a far more advanced form of Tony Stark's quantum navigator that they used in the quantum realm in Endgame. It's just on a far more controlled scale and produced from a self-perpetuating energy source. It seems like inside this core is a kind of nexus hub for different multiversal realities to spawn from. The bands of this core have writing on them, a language based on circles, which you can see in other parts of the quantum realm. This might be a language that Kang uses and enforces throughout the realm. Now, one of Scott's variants is himself, if he never became an Avenger and stayed at Baskin-Robbins. Off-screen, another one, if you listen closely, asks him for ice cream. When one of the Scotts sizes up, he unravels into ribbons, which looks a lot like what Wanda Maximoff did to Reed Richards. We don't know what's really going on here, why this happens, but it might just be some divine multiversal law that says when you stray too far from your hive of variants, you get like self-pruned out of existence. And from here, this scene is just smartly shot by having all the other Scott variants helmet up out of fear, but our Scott stays unhelmeted, which is both a practical way to follow him in the scene and a way of showing his courage and determination to save Cassie.
I was quite confused by the rules of this scene. I enjoyed the shit out of it. I thought it was an awesome scene visually.
Yeah.
And conceptually, it was like quite interesting, playing with the rules of the cosmos, basically, because like there's a lot that we just don't understand.
Yeah.
And so taking things to this absurd degree is actually like, hey, it could happen. Who knows what could happen out there? What I'm trying to get at is I didn't understand what the fuck was going on.
What do you mean?
Because I mean, there was this moment where Hope is flying in and she's being told to just concentrate, because that's not real. They're just possibilities. But they exist for the moment enough to help prop him up to do stuff. I'm a little bit confused as to whether they've actually materialized or if it's, you know what I mean? Like she can see it too. Hope can see it when she's flying up. And she's fighting against all of her other possibilities, but then they sort of like warp in and out. So I'm like, are they real or are they not real? Like, it's a little bit confusing to me. As much as open-minded as I am, I'm like, okay, so they existed for the moment. I don't know. I confused myself
They're
even
real.
more just now.
They're real in the moment.
So then they all died.
No.
How were they able to help him? You see,
Okay, whoa, stop that.
It just confused me a little bit. That's all. In my effort to understand it, I was like, after they got past this part of the movie, I stopped thinking about it because I was like, there's no point.
You're like, I need to focus on what they're doing right now.
Yeah, this doesn't necessarily make a lot of sense, but it's fun.
No, but it looks visually stunning it's an interesting idea.
Yeah, no, I mean, exactly. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And that's what mattered at the end of the day is like, are you having fun? Yes, I did in that moment.
And Baskin-Robbins, Scott Lang was my favorite.
Sure.
Really, it's Cassie who saves Scott. All the Scotts, by uniting this whole hive behind their constant. And after shrinking the core back down, Kang meets the rest of the gang and tells Hope, "Hello, Jellybean." Jellybean was Janet's nickname for Hope. This is his creepy way of indicating that he knows her. Kang takes the core, swats away Scott and Hope, and takes Janet back to his fortress, where he has this fascinating conversation with her. He projects the sacred timeline around the room, starting with just a ring in his hand. I saw the chaos spreading across realities, universes colliding, endless incursions. I saw the multiverse, and it was dying.
Is Jonathan Majors?
Yeah.
He projects that one ring over another ring, with branches between the rings veering toward each other and colliding with little flashes. These represent incursions. And after these incursions happen, those branches stay there, just kind of sad, broken ends, showing how one of the universes won that incursion, the other one didn't, and left this ugly scar behind. Now remember, when He Remains first revealed the multiverse in his origin story, he depicted it as one ring floating atop another ring. So I love how this movie's really building on that visual language. And now we see how the sacred timeline's eruption upon Sylvie killing He Who Remains in the Loki finale affects another sacred timeline. That event, as well as Peter Parker and Doctor Strange's spell going awry, and Doctor Strange and Wanda Maximoff dreamwalking and Multiverse of Madness are all examples of these kind of incursions, and how one by one they represent a crack in the dam, leading to the overall death of the multiverse. What's interesting is, this Kang doesn't blame the Avengers for it. He looks down on the Avengers like they're helpless children who don't know what they're doing. Instead, he blames the other Kangs in the dynasty for their childish meddling, childish behaviors beneath Kangs, and he views himself as the adult in the room, who believes that order is attained only by conquering, as he says, burning the broken world and building a new one. He says all the suffering will be worth it, defending himself saying, I have lost. You have no idea what I've lost, and I will burn them out of time for what they've done to me. So think about this. When we see Kang in this movie vaporizing people, in his mind, he is burning them out of time, like cauterizing a wound, leaving a scar, sending a message with that scar. And yes, we are left with the mystery of what Kang lost.
Yeah.
One theory is that he's doing all this to win back his long-lost love of Ravonna Renslayer. But I don't know, based on Kang later pummeling Scott after Scott decided to leave his daughter behind and instead entomb himself with Kang, I have to wonder if Kang might himself have a daughter we don't know about. I don't know, maybe Ravonna's actually his daughter. Maybe Miss Minutes is his
How did you
daughter's
get that?
soul. I don't know, my mind is running away with me. Hank?
That's an interesting jump. How did he get that? I guess in the sense of like what could possibly be a strong enough reason for Kang to do what he does. Love is a strong motivator, but I'm of the mind that love for a child is even stronger than romantic love that you might feel for someone.
You can make another kid.
What?
He hasn't mentioned this at all, and I don't know if anyone else has considered this, but the way that Kang is describing the situation, it almost feels like Saddam Hussein. It's like, we wanted to take out Saddam Hussein. Now, obviously, this can like digress into a lot of weird, funky areas, but I'm trying to keep it as simple and light as possible.
Okay.
But like, once Saddam Hussein was taken out, it created a vacuum of power.
Yeah.
And a lot of other people tried to come and like, you know,
Yeah, I mean,
he was keeping the others in check.
Yeah, I mean, the Saddam Hussein is an example, but this happens a lot whenever a powerful leader, I guess, like an autocratic leader, is taken out. Then suddenly there's a void. And it's like, well, who's going to fill that void?
Yeah, but it seemed that everybody was kind of afraid of this Kang, of this variant.
Yeah.
And then he's gone, and so now a bunch of other people are coming in.
Yeah,
and that's
exactly.
basically what was alluded to at the end of the movie.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because well, I think Kang warned Scott as well, and then now Scott's like, oh shit, what if I just played into it? What if I just made matters worse?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
America.
Hank, meanwhile, was saved by his ant farm. The ants time dilated 1,000 years in a single day, meaning they must have slipped into a time vortex. And in that time, they built a socialistic technocratic society. I think we always forget that the best parts of these Ant-Man movies are the ants.
Yeah.
These ants neutralize Kang's advantage of technology hundreds of years in the future because Kang's chosen system of governance is an archaic military dictatorship. He doesn't know how to play with others. Kang mobilizes his fortress to depart the quantum realm with his entire army. He declares, "Today we conquer eternity and the dynasty of Kangs," before Cassie cuts him off. But conquer eternity? Interesting choice of words, considering the character of Eternity, as of Thor: Love and Thunder, did have a physical form in the MCU, and we're not exactly sure where Eternity is after it seemed to transform into Mistress Love. There may not be an eternity to conquer, which is an interesting concept because Jonathan Majors partially based his character on Alexander the Great. What do they say about Alexander the Great? Alexander wept, for there were no worlds left to conquer. And yes, of course, Kang also mentions his dynasty, whom we meet in the post-credit scene, and will be the Kangs the Avengers have to face in Avengers Kang Dynasty in 2025. Giant Scott attacks Kang's fortress. This is the largest he has grown yet. In the 2018 film, he bragged to Bill Foster that his record then was 65 feet, or 19.8 meters, which is roughly how big he gets in the San Francisco Bay. In Avengers Endgame, that wide shot of all the portals opening up, Giant Scott, when you compare his height to a nearby human, Giant Scott is roughly 19 times as tall as that human, and if you were to put that human at 6 feet, because those look like the Wakandans, you know, the mountain tribe, they're pretty tall, that would make Giant Scott in Endgame around 114 feet tall, or 37.4 meters. But now, based on this one shot where Giant Scott stomps on the quantum knots, those quantum knots, I would say, are about 25% of the scale of that human next to his foot in Endgame, which means that Scott here must be around at least 4 times taller than he was in Endgame, well over 450 feet tall now, or over 137 meters. Our man is roughly the height of a small skyscraper. And yes, when Scott stomps on Kang's forces, it does mirror how Kang will later stomp on his helmet, as if, of course, trying to crush an ant. Scott,
I know you have something to say about this. I think I know what you're going to say, but go ahead.
This is another thing that confuses me, okay? His daughter, what's her daughter's name? Cassie, she also ends up ballooning up to a huge size, right? And she's like, I don't know why, but I'm so hungry now. I just want some lemon, or whatever it was that she wanted to eat. I forgot what it was. Turkey or something. I forgot.
She wanted to eat.
She wanted to eat, and Scott's like, yeah, that's a weird thing that happens. It's totally odd. I'm like, you guys are in the quantum realm, right?
It's all relative.
Not even measurable on the Planck scale. I don't understand the physics of this. Like, you're not even human size right now. So technically speaking, you're not
the size of a skyscraper.
Yeah.
You're the size of like you're microscopic. I can't see you.
Microscopic is not even a valid word in this. It's quantum.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? I don't really get that. Like if he just ballooned up to like a proper human size, he would easily destroy all of that. And so for there to be any exhaustion, there's some kind of weird scaling down effect that we're supposed to consider. And I
think that's what we have to buy into, that like automatically when you go into the quantum realm, you shrink. So it's all relative, right?
Yeah.
So you're your human size in the quantum realm. And so relatively when you grow that big, even though we wouldn't even be able to see you in a microscope from here, we have to believe that you are as tall as a skyscraper.
This is one of those things where I get mad at myself for even thinking about it.
Yeah, you should be mad at yourself.
Because the thing about it is none of the physics makes any sense in Ant-Man.
What is a physic?
Yeah, it just like when Jessie, what's her name?
Janet?
Or
no,
Cassie. When Cassie hands the car to the police officer at the jail, and I'm like,
that should be very heavy.
That doesn't make any sense. She wouldn't be able to pick it up. But like that's one of those things where it's like, haha, it's a movie. You stop thinking about it. I'm like, okay, stop trying to use big words then. Just go flubbity flub. Like stop trying to use actual words to make sense of it. It's like, it's just sort of a la carte science, basically, you know? It's like, okay, now magic,
can't.
science word, magic.
Science,
I'm overthinking it.
Yeah, you just,
I know. It's just, I try to turn that part of my brain off. It's that, like, when they start trying to make sense of things and, like, apply the same rules across the board, I'm like, what? No, you established that you're not even human. I don't understand what you're saying to me, movie. So I start to, like, fight with myself a little bit. I'm going to turn my mouth off.
Like you should have turned your brain off in the movie.
Scott picks up a disc-shaped piece of a building and uses it as a shield that he later wedges into Kang's rings, much like his hero Captain America would, bringing him full circle with his reference membership on Team Cap. He cannonballs into the rings and breaks them. Now, think about this. Kang could have used that multiverse core to power his ship chair alone and escape the quantum realm without going to all this trouble. The reason he fails, really, is because he got greedy. He wanted to bring his entire fortress, his entire fleet with him to wage war on all the Kangs. Because he insisted on bringing all of his stuff with him, he gave Scott and the others enough time to stop him. Though in fairness to Kang, you could argue that he felt that he needed all this backup because the moment he escaped from the quantum realm, he'd have the full might of the Kang dynasty on him. This is all a way of saying it's hard being Kang. We get this little moment where Giant Scott celebrates with Giant Cassie, and what I love about the shot is that it was likely one of the easier VFX shots to do, since both actors are the same size. But I do like how they slowed down their speech and their movement just a little bit, but either way, father and daughter are finally on the same level. They're finally talking slow enough to listen to and understand each other. Cassie says she's hungry and craves a lime, to which Scott says, citrus, it's weird. This calls back the running joke of Scott always wanting orange slices after he goes big.
Does anyone have any orange slices?
Scott even had orange slices ready to go when Hawkeye came back from the baseball glove trial in Avengers Endgame. And so Kang, finally allowing his rage to boil over, floats down to the battle on a disc and vaporizes everyone in sight. I love how his neurokinetic armor automatically shifts up his arm and over his shoulders to just get out of the way and give his arms greater flexibility. The Freedom Fighters, despite making some gains when Bev used his holes to Kirby some quantum knots, Kang repels them. He kills Zalem, and Jintora is forced to retreat, and we briefly see one of the sentient buildings holding the other as it dies in its arms. But facing down Kang is Scott, Hope, and Cassie, where Cassie finally masters a jump tap, and Scott grows large enough to slam Kang against a wall, saying, "You son of a," before Kang blasts him off. Remember, Kang, Nathaniel Richards, is the son of a bloodline that traces back to Reed Richards, Mr. Fantastic. So Kang might have cut off Scott's sentence to avoid having to think about his lineage. But ultimately, Hank's ants save the day. Swarming Kang, in turn, takes Cassie's advice to stop being a dick. Love the look of disgust and anger Kang gives MODOK in this moment. This is a conqueror who hates being betrayed. And MODOK turns Kang's shield from Kang's color, blue, to MODOK's color, fuchsia, allowing the ants to pick apart Kang's armor and carry him away. They watch MODOK die, his heart rate monitor turning red and flatlining. Janet uses the quantum core to open a portal home, but Scott notices Kang approaching and pushes Cassie in order to stay behind and fight Kang just to keep him in the quantum realm. Now, think about this. It's not really explained how Kang got away from the ants, but now I'm pretty worried about the ants, and even more impressed with Kang for defeating an advanced technocratic society with the willpower of one conqueror. I don't know, maybe he made side deals with some of the top ant lieutenants, or maybe brainwashed them with some fascist talking points that socialism doesn't work. I don't know, I'm impressed. Kang and Scott fight.
That was a very Die Hard kind of thing where Kang just shows up again. It's like, well, hold on, you last I saw you were getting taken away by all the ants. What happened there? And in Die Hard, there was the German guy who got hung by Bruce Willis.
Oh, yeah.
And then later on, he comes out of the garage with a gun in his hand. Like,
just came back.
And that gave Carl Winslow, That's not actually his name. That's his name from Family Matters. But Carl Winslow had the opportunity to shoot the guy down after never having fired his gun in a long time. Remember, that's his arc. So it's a very diehard kind of thing. It's like, I just accepted it. When Kang has to show. I wanted more, and so it's like, I was fine with it. I let it bypass all the protocols in my brain of like, wait, sense no make. Like, I let it go past all of that because I wanted another fight with Kang. You know what I mean? It felt underwhelming where it stopped.
Right, yeah. It's like
more.
He just gets taken out by a bunch of ants.
Yeah.
Yay, that's the end of the movie.
Yeah.
One-on-one. And I do like it when an epic third act battle boils down to just a simple fist fight or sword duel. Kang's armor is broken off to expose his arm. Jonathan Majors gets to show off some of that physique and come off like a physically imposing force. Scott is outmatched, but he's able to hang in there because he's not trying to win.
I don't have to win.
We just both have to lose.
Hope returns and helps Scott destroy the core with red and blue pin particles, creating a vortex, pushing Kang into that vortex, and shrinking him out of sight. We gotta assume he's not dead because Darren Cross went through this same process. Realistically, Kang's probably stuck in an endless probability storm down there, where, unlike Scott, it's gonna be really hard for Kang to cooperate with his variants. So when he does figure it out, look out, we got Secret Wars coming. Meanwhile, Cassie uses her quantum realm telescope to locate the last known spot where the portal was and reopens it? I didn't know a communicator could do that, and I thought our communicator only portaled them in before because MODOK hijacked it. The logic's kind of fuzzy, but in my opinion, what saves
that's
it
the logic
is that this
that's
film's
fuzzy.
epilogue doesn't really leave things all neatly tied up for Scott anyway. He remains haunted by the consequences of defeating Kang the Conqueror, fearing the Kang dynasty now. A dynasty that is coming, based on the post-credit scene, introducing us to Ramatut and Mortis, thousands of other Kangs, now on a mission to stop the Avengers from continuing to tamper with the multiverse. The second post-credit scene's even scarier in some ways, introducing us to Victor Timely, a Kang variant from 1901, who I explained in the post-credit scene might have inspired Howard Stark. But as he goes back through his routine, Scott's eyes seem to linger on people wearing the same shade of bright purple, with purple balloons at Cassie's party, a green cake, purple and green, the colors of Kang's armor. Yes, I know it sounds crazy, but this is where Scott's brain is right now. He's paranoid, he's losing it. And there is a deeper significance to Scott's unresolved paranoia that I will explore in next week's Quantumania Deep Dive. But a few things to note about Scott's changed reality. On the wall by the sidewalk of his morning walk, there's now graffiti of an Ant-Man helmet with a heart around it. Happy Valentine's, Scott. And Ruben now knows his name. But still, there's a lingering creepiness to Scott going back through his loop of his life as if nothing has changed, like his life is an episode of a sitcom from which he cannot escape. He is the comedian sitcom star being welcome back, welcome back, welcome back, welcome back to a narrative loop written for him by architects controlling every aspect of his life. Architects were now thrilled that he did away with their pesky exile. And yes, I did break down this movie's post-credit scenes in another video. For everything else, I bet I brought it up in the Quantumania live stream that I did over on our new channel, The Deep Dive, which is now live with launch day videos that you are gonna love. Please subscribe to it.
That whole thing about the narrative that he's sort of stuck in a loop on, that went over my head.
That's diabolical.
I don't. Can you break that down for me like I'm 3? I don't understand what he's saying there. Like, what? How did he infer all that?
I don't know how he infers. Some of this stuff I'm like, okay, I love you, Erik, but you're analyzing the crap out of this now, and I'm not sure if it's that deep, but I love that he goes there.
Well, he's got to go there.
He's got to go there. That's his job. That's the other channel.
Mm-hmm. I don't know how he got to that thing of this narrative of like Truman Show. That's where I'm lost. That's lost on me. I didn't get that Truman Show thing at all when I watched the movie, and when he explained it to me, it's almost like, how do you get a rocket into space being explained to me? And I still, what? I know it's there, but you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I don't know. I don't understand what he's saying.
It's a theory, right? Yeah. And if it's true, it is pretty diabolical that maybe, like, after he got rid of Kang, the other Kangs have somehow manipulated his timeline, his life somehow, so that he continues living in this weird loop, you know?
Gotcha.
And if that is the case, then that is very, very diabolical and scary.
Yeah.
To think that, but there was something that felt off about that scene.
Well, it was supposed to. It was by design.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we have the beginning of the movie to compare that to, where it was just kind of like light and jazzy, and he's like just waltzing through.
I was half expecting an Eternals type of ending, where
What do you mean?
A bunch of Kangs show up. In Eternals, that giant Asimov or whatever his name is.
Yeah.
What's his name?
The Celestial.
Asimov?
No, I don't think that was his name.
Ashton Kutcher.
Yes.
I forgot the name of the giant robot that appears in the sky.
Not a robot. He's a celestial.
So I was expecting not a celestial to show up, but like a lot of Kangs to just like start raining down. It's raining Kangs. You know what I'm saying?
Hallelujah!
Yeah, exactly.
It's raining Kangs. But they did that. They did that in the post-credits.
Oh, in the
scene.
SNL sketch?
No. What? They did a Raining Kangs SNL sketch?
No, the mid-credits scene felt like an SNL sketch. I didn't come up with that. That's not. It didn't originate from Jabby Koay. You'll find out who that originated from soon enough, I'm sure. When it was told to me, I was like, "Yep." Like, that's exactly what I felt. It felt weird. It felt like a joke.
I did mention in my previous video where I looked at Erik Voss's breakdown of the post-credit scenes. I was like, yeah, the acting, his acting there was just a little bit over the top for me.
The post-credit scene, though.
I loved that one.
That was great.
Because we had Mobius and
he was
Loki.
more frightening in that post-credit scene as the inventor.
Victor Timely.
Yeah. More than he was as Kang the Conqueror.
I love Jonathan Majors when he does like the quiet simmer. There's just something about like that contained rage. He's so good at that. Maybe he's just an angry person in real life.
No.
He's got a lot of experiences.
He's a very quiet person, actually.
How do you know?
I might be making this up, but I feel like I saw him live in person for The Harder They Fall. I was kind of tired that night, but the director came out, and I believe Jonathan Majors also came out.
Oh.
And they were talking for like an hour on stage. And I think the reason why it doesn't stick in my brain as a very memory is because when I watched him, he had such a quiet demeanor when he was talking, whereas the director's very like.
Well,
big.
he does seem to be like an actor-y actor.
Yeah.
Who like delves really deep into his.
You know how Johnny
roles and
Depp is
everything.
when Johnny Depp does interviews? It's just like, oh yeah, he's
so
just
chill,
talking like this and on his breath, and he's not even making eye contact. Really, kind of looks up and makes weird
Yeah.
jokes.
Actor-y
Jonathan
actor.
Majors
Yeah.
is kind of like that, as my experience goes. I was sitting way at the back of the theater. Jonathan Majors was way up on the stage, and that's when I realized he was younger than me.
And you were like,
God damn it. How is this possible? He looks like, when I look at him, I get dad vibes. You know what I mean? Like I'm looking at a person who's older than me.
You're like, you're an adult.
Yeah, exactly. I see a grown up when I look at him, and I find out he's like significantly younger than me. I'm just like, what the fuck? Why, God?
Asian, no crazy.
I guess so. Anyway, I like this breakdown. There were some things I don't understand. I don't know why. Erik Voss talked about when Ant-Man was going to say, "You son of a bitch," and he stops him because he doesn't want to think about his ancestry. I'm like, oh, what?
I know, that part.
I think that's a bit much.
That part made me smile.
But,
I was like, I think it was just because they wanted to keep it safe for the kiddie winkles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think that's what he was thinking about in that moment.
No, I don't think so. But I love that he did that, though.
Yeah, but there was a lot of things in here where I'm like,
Yeah.
That just wasn't one of them. It's easier to remember the things where I'm in full disagreement with.
Yeah, like the science.
Yeah, because like the
science.
The other stuff, I'm just like where I'm like, yeah. It's like that's not like making. It's not being recorded in my head as well. Yeah. Anyway,
this has devolved.
Fun times. Peace out.